Hey everybody, it's your girl Jacques with the Audio Flow. Happy June, June 5th to be exact. I can't believe that we are already in summer and basically it's Christmas. And anytime after February, the year just escapes us. So, okay, no, not really Christmas, but it's June, it's almost summer, and you know what that means? More audiobooks. And even that, we have a special summer series for you here on the Audio Flow called The Featured Voice. So many of you don't know, or you may know if you follow me, that I did not start listening to audiobooks until February of last year. I really wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but I connected with an author who's now a friend of mine, Renee Mason, and she joined one of my Facebook groups. And I believe her audiobook had just recently released, and she was giving away free copies. And so I volunteered as tribute to listen to one of them, and I let it sit for a little bit in my box because I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to listen to an audiobook. I had been so set on just reading and reviewing. I just wasn't sure I wanted to do it. But she changed my life, and she likes to call it that she deflowered me. So, yes, she deflowered me and took my audio virginity with Curing Dr. Vincent, where I fell in love with Noah Michael Levine and Aaron DeWard, and how they really just brought that book to life. The whole series, and of course, the symphony series as well. And I had never experienced anything like it. Until this day, I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I've fallen in love with some great people, but there's nothing as good as the first time. It's never as good as the first time, and that will always remain, will have a big chunk of my heart. So thank you, Renee and Aaron and Noah, for introducing me to the art and craft of audiobooks. And this is where the Audio Flow Summer Series, the featured voice, comes in. I want to bring other people that same joy and that same connection. There's so many people that I chat with who really enjoy reading, and they cannot conceptualize the idea that an audiobook can bring them the same joy and entertainment as reading a book for themselves, and kind of putting a voice to the character and all those type of things. And I get it 100%. I get it because I was there. I had a conversation with my mom a couple weeks ago, and just expressed to her the reason why there's nothing like listening to an audiobook and listening to someone perform the emotions that go into it, whether it's funny or sad or something that pisses you off. In your head you can think about what is going on, but when you have someone perform it, it's just totally different. Narrators don't read, they perform. And so when you listen to a book where someone has performed it so well, you can't help but fall in love with the writing and the narrator and how they brought it to life. So the featured voice is a 12-week series sponsored and brought to you by the Audio Flow, where I have connected with 12 narrators, voice performers that I've either listened to maybe once or twice, or who are new to me, and I want to share them with you guys. I believe that their voices need to be heard, and this is a great platform for me to introduce you to them. So beginning this week, June 5th, our featured voice is Tom Jordan. He's fairly new to the audiobook world, but he has done various commercials and things like that. And let me tell you, his voice is absolutely amazing. It's like butter. And we'll play a few clips for you so that you can hear what he does with accents and things like that. But I'm happy to present to you guys our first featured voice, Mr. Tom Jordan. Good afternoon, Tom. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jack. How are you?
I'm doing well. It is June, and I was telling the listeners a little bit earlier that I was excited about it being June for the first time in Indiana because we have sun, and normally we never have the sun out. So I
Oh,
can't be
nice.
any happier.
That's awesome.
All right,
We have
so
something here I'm in California. We've got what we call June gloom, at least within 15 miles of the beach. And you'd think it would be sunny here, but it's actually more cloudy here than it is in April or May in
really,
June. Yeah.
well, that's awful. I mean, it's funny when people think California, they think it's hot. They think, everybody's driving a convertible and the top's down. And yeah, no, I've been out there. It's
Uh,
cold in the
oh,
morning.
we do. I can't complain about the weather here, honestly, but June tends to be a little bit more gloomy than you would expect from California. So.
That's interesting. Now, are you originally from California?
I am born and raised in Long Beach,
Oh,
and I'm just over on the other side of the Orange Curtain, as we say, in Orange County right now, in Seal Beach. So I'm real close still to the Long Beach area.
oh, okay. So, are you a beachy person? Are
I
you
used to
always at the
be.
beach?
I yeah, I used to be. I was born near the beach, and we lived there for the first 30 years of my life, and then just moved a couple miles away from it after that. So I've always been close to the beach, and we're about 3 miles now from the beach, but um, I don't go anymore that much. I would take the kids a couple times during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Seems weird because you'd think, boy, you're right there, and it's just.
Right.
But I spent so much time at the beach now I go and I'm like fully covered. I'm got like practically wearing a bathrobe, and I'm at that age where I can wear black socks and sandals and have
No,
a
no,
protector. Nobody
no,
even
just no, no, no sandals and socks. We cannot be friends if you actually go in public like that.
promise
Don't do
that again. But anyway, so I don't do the beach all that much anymore. The kids like it. We go down near the beach a lot. There's a lot of nice shopping and
it.
places to stroll around. But as far as laying out goes, not really. So
Okay. All right. Well, you've done your beach share. Now it's just, the kids enjoy it and you go out there with your black socks. So,
right. Yep.
that's the life.
Opera
So,
sunglasses and the metal detector. That's it. Yeah.
well, thank you so much for being on today's show and being a part of the featured voice. And you actually sort of inspired this. In case you didn't know, you were kind of the inspiration behind the featured voice and just how we connected and met through oral fixation. I always have to say that really slowly because
Mhm.
it can definitely come out wrong. And
Yeah.
and
Vowel
and
at the beginning there you have to watch out for.
yes, and I made that misstep too during the intro for this show, and I had to go back and say, look, that's not what I meant. It's oral because
Right.
yeah, just
There's a
not
double
what we're trying to
entendre,
bring forth.
but we won't even go there. So.
But just being able to connect with you, and through you, I've been able to connect with other voice performers, and a lot of them I had not heard of. And again, I believe everybody who's in this industry deserves to be heard, and we need to know who you guys are. So there was, the featured voice was birthed. So since you're first up, I'd love for you to kind of give a little bit of background about how you moved from I know you've done some commercials and some other things, but what, kind of pushed you to move toward audiobooks?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks. This is a great idea for the series. I'm wishing you best of luck on it. It's a good idea.
Thank you.
So yeah, I started voiceover about 25 years ago, early 90s, way before the internet had its influence and made things easier. So I was driving from Long Beach up to LA to do auditions and things like that, and some commercial work. And then I dropped it for a while. I got married, had started having kids, and had to have a full-time job, and realized that it just was going to be a full-time pursuit, just like regular acting is. And
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't put the time into it, even though I loved it. So flash forward to early 2000s. The internet's around by that point. You can work out of your home. You can email MP3 files, all that fun stuff. So I started
Right.
doing it again, started doing car commercials and things like that. But again, I had to shelve it just because lack of time. The kids were still pretty young. Another one was on the way. So
Mm-hmm.
now here I am, three teenagers. Actually, my oldest just turned 20. And I got a little bit more time on my hands, and I dove back into voiceover full time. Not full time. I still have a full time job, but I dove back in with earnest a year ago, just 1 year ago. And And I started, I got a coach, I got my demos done, I did all the right things, and I'm still trying to do all the right things. One of
Mm-hmm.
the things I did was I signed up through to ACX, which is owned by Audible, which is in turn owned by Amazon, and ACX hooks up rights holders, which are authors or publishing houses, and producers, which are the narrators, because we also edit and produce the audio, and they hook them up together. And so that's where I've been for about the past 2 months now. And the first couple weeks, I was just kind of feeling the ropes, and I got approached by the author Barbara Goss, who heard my narration demo on ACX and said she liked my voice and asked me if I wanted to work on her series of six, actually seven, books, and they're romance novels. So I jumped on it. And anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't want to intrude too much on your questions, but that's how I got involved in the audiobook thing. And I dove in with both feet because I've got a full-time job that takes me out of the house for about 12 hours a day.
Oh,
And then I
wow.
had to jump into doing audiobooks too, which takes a tremendous amount of time. If you ask anybody who's narrated and produced the audio, you can really get a feel for just how long it takes to do this. But I've got a very patient author that I'm working with, and we've already finished one of the books. And now I'm working on, we're almost done with number 2, and I'm on to number 3 in June here. So,
Well, it sounds like you've been really busy. I mean, where you're busy with a full time job and a family and teens and an almost legal adult, and
yeah.
so do you have particular times of day? When you actually record, are you a really early morning person or just late at night?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, no, I've always been kind of an early riser, early to bed, early to rise. So in fact, I go to bed sometimes, well, nowadays before the kids do. I'll go to bed 9 or 9:30. I'll wake up by 5, and I'll record for an hour in the morning or edit, and then I'll come home after work. So I leave for work about 6:45. I come home about 5:15, and I'll have dinner with the family, and then I'll put in an hour to an hour and a half in the evening. So I've got about 2.5 hours of audiobook or whatever voiceover stuff that I need to do time allotted each day. And that's a balance that I can handle right now. I envy people that have the ability to do voiceover full time. It's not an easy pursuit, especially when you're just new, because you need to establish yourself and really start getting clients and things like that. But
Right.
these days, maybe,
So eventually, that would be kind of a career goal for you, is to do this full time.
Well, it's interesting because I'm a writer at my work, and I work in marketing writing and product marketing writing, and it's copywriting, it's advertisements, it's web copy, it's things I love. I mean, it's copywriting, and so I don't want to give that up to do voiceover. So I've got these two competing passions. I've got writing, which I've done forever, and I've got voiceover, which I've done for a long time as well. That's kind of come back into my life recently. So I don't want to say, yeah, I'm going to abandon my job at work, because it's just too good. I really like working where I work, and I like the people I work with, and
Right.
so right now I'm just happy to have a balance, and I feel okay with that. Now, when it comes time for me to retire, you know, 10, 15 years down the road, then I think it would be great to do voiceover and have my home studio and do that. I think that's really what I'm looking forward to, is that future goal. And I'll be 60, 65. So, and you can do voiceover till whenever. So that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I love that you said that you have these two competing passions, because a lot of time people will tell you that, you can have one, but normally one will kind of outweigh another, and you'll just want to do that. But you brought up a good point, because that's kind of where I am right now. I have two things that I'm really passionate about, and um, I sometimes feel like I can only do one, but you've kind of let me know that I can still do both. And at some point later down the line, maybe when I hit retirement in 50 or 60 years, no, just kidding.
Exactly.
then one of the other will just kind of take over. But it's good that you can still do both, and maybe you'll just write another book, and then you'll just and narrate your own book. There you
Yeah,
go.
you could do that. Yes, but yeah, I think there is room for both things. You just have to find the balance. You got to find the time for it, and with family and everything else, I finally struck a balance just a couple of weeks ago because the first book that I did for Barbara's Shadow series was difficult in that I really was feeling pressed to get it done a lot quicker than I probably should have. So I put a lot more hours into it. I was doing more like 4 hours a day instead of 2.5 hours a day, and that cuts into my life a lot. But yeah, you never know. I wrote a book about 7 years ago that I also put out on ACX, and I wanted somebody else to narrate it because I wanted to know what it was like coming from the publishers, from the rights holders standpoint. So I put it up there, and it had been on Amazon for a long time, not selling. I think I had like six sales in the past 7 years, and I really didn't care because it was more or less a marketing experiment. Although I think there's some value to the book itself. So anyway, I put it up there, and then I got to go through the process of auditioning other narrators, and I didn't let them know that I was also a narrator. I was just an author, and so I did that. I went through 30 or 40 auditions. I chose somebody, and now they're working on narrating my book that I wrote, and that's going to be.
That. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. So it's fun. I really wanted to see what it was like from the other end and get a feel for it. So I really have a full knowledge of what I'm trying to do here. And it's just, when I get into something, I dive head first. Well, and you can ask my wife. It sometimes drives her nuts because I'll just talk about it all the time. So,
but at least you do it. So, some people talk about it and never do anything.
Yeah, I talk about it until they tell me to shut up.
So were the books with Barbara, were they your first, or did you have some others that you worked on prior to receiving the contract with her?
The books with Barbara are the first audio books that I've done, and the first time I've had an experience working through ACX. I wrote another book on podcasting about 10 years ago that I narrated myself, and I've done a lot of chapters for other books, and I've done some LibriVox narrations for the blind and that type of thing. So I have experience reading books into a microphone, but primarily my experience came from corporate narration, which is another thing that I do at my day job, and commercial work and e-learning and that type of thing.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of stamina to do audiobooks. It's you sit in front of the microphone for a long time and then you edit. It's about a half an hour per chapter that I'm doing right now for Barbara's books, and about 2 hours to edit that chapter. So you figure 2.5 hours per chapter, 16 chapters, and you can do the math from there.
Yeah, I can't do the math, but I take your word for it. It sounds
I can't either. That's why I gave it to you.
The listeners, you do the math and tell us how long it takes.
Don't, I don't care. And anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at. There are some audiobook narrators who have been doing in the industry for a long time, and I think you're going to probably get to some of them in this series, and they've done 50, 60, 100 or more books, and become very efficient at editing and very efficient at reading. And it's just a matter of time. You can't rush it. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just going through the process and enjoying it as much as I can.
Well, that's good. And just to piggyback off of what you were saying, so this is your first narrating a particular series in fiction, and if I'm not mistaken, Barbara writes historical romance. So since you've started this, do you have a particular routine that you use when you're preparing to go in and record?
I read the book first, which is something that every narrator will tell you is a must. You've got to know the book. And then you make notes so that you understand who the characters are, what their motivations are, all those fun things. And so you really get to know the book better than you would if you were just reading it, say. It's almost like you were back in school and you were studying a novel for a test. There's a lot of the idiosyncrasies of the characters and so on and so forth. I'll give you an example that's happened a couple times to me because I'm somewhat new at taking notes in books. The other day I was reading a chapter out of her second book, Shadow of Deceit, and I came, I don't know, 15 minutes into dialogue, and I read a line that said, and he said, but this time his English accent wasn't as pronounced. And I realized that I hadn't put an English accent to the character that I was reading for the past 15 minutes. So I had to go back and redo. And there was other things like that too. There was another one with a Southern accent, and I was like, oh my, she's supposed to have a Southern, because I have to go back and redo that. So that's where taking notes really comes in handy, is taking notes of the character. Oh, Martha's got a Southern accent, and Joseph's got a British accent. You do those up front, right near the first lines they have. Otherwise, you end up having to go back and redo all those lines. So, and I'm sure the
Yeah, that's
guest
a
story.
that's a lot of work. It's so funny when people say, "Oh, I can narrate a book," or and I think about the processes that you guys go through, and I say, you can read a book, but narrating and performing a book is totally different. There's so much that goes into it, and I always think about Singing in the Rain. Are you familiar with that movie?
Oh yeah,
The dueling cavaliers, and Lena's, and the voices are off, and that's all I can think of when I think of people who think it's so easy to just narrate or perform a book. It's not. And you going in and making sure the accents are correct, and making notes. And yeah, me, I just read the book, and everybody would sound exactly the same, and nobody would ever buy my audiobook. I just be really bad.
well, there's people that do that too, and there's a lot of it's acting.
It
It's
is.
just, and I acted some in college, and I think I've always been a real ham bone. I've got people that can attest to that I live with in this very house. Class clown, all that type of thing. So it's always been part of me. I've always felt comfortable in front of a microphone. I've had 3 or 4 podcasts myself over the past 10 years. And so that's never been a problem. It's just sitting there, and you're right. It's a labor of love. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And I'm glad that you're doing this series. I know that there's a lot of authors that don't realize just how much work there is from a narrator's standpoint. And so it's a good thing. It's good knowledge to have for
It
everybody.
is, and also I interact with a lot of authors, and some have not ventured out into audio yet, and so this also gives them an opportunity to see and hear other performers that are out there. So if they don't really have direction on who they want, or I know a lot of it has to do with the price point and the budget and all that good stuff, but it's good for them to have options and be able to hear some from people they may not have heard of. And so with that being said, I really want to get into Shadow of Shame, because I went and listened to the clip today, and so I want to play a little bit of this sample, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions about it. And
Yep.
so let's take a listen, everybody. This is Shadow of Shame. It is written by Barbara Goss, and narrated, of course, by our good friend here, Tom Jordan. So let's take a listen.
When Jonas realized he'd been standing in the doorway with his mouth agape, he quickly proceeded into the room and closed the door behind him. His worst fears were about to be realized. He knew that at age 18 he was headed for the altar. "Sit," his father commanded. Jonas sat in a chair as far from the father and daughter as he could get. "Mr. Hayes is here to see you do the right thing by his stepdaughter, Minnie Kreider, who just happens to be increasing after being with you several nights while I was gone." Jonas's stomach felt like marbles had begun to tumble around in it. "Yes, sir," he mumbled. He looked at the woman's stepfather. "I'm sorry, sir." "As you should be," Mr. Hayes snapped. "Minnie's a good girl," he pointed his finger at Jonas. "You took advantage of my stepdaughter, and you'll marry her for it, and quickly, before the condition becomes noticeable." Jonas
Gonna stop there, because the reason why I like this clip, one, is because I think you told me this is Christian romance, correct? So it's fairly, it's a clean book.
It's clean, yeah, as opposed to erotica or other romances that don't even want to rate themselves. Yeah, so it's clean. There's kissing, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of romance to it, but it's just clean. Yeah.
And I just think it's so funny. I was chatting with you earlier, and it said she's known for her favors, and it's just so funny. because of the word usage and the stepfather saying you need to marry her before this is noticeable, and
Right.
it's just so funny. And the character, I don't even remember his name, the main character, and he's like, yeah, I really want to say I'm not the only one. Are you sure it's mine? And I
Oh,
just can't wait for this to come out.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's fun. It's very. I had never read, sorry, any Christian or clean romances before. One thing I found while reading it and rereading it many times as I was recording it was just how much it works without explicit um, descriptions,
mm-hmm,
because your mind fills in the blanks. And when it does, you're painting the pictures in your mind anyway.
mm-hmm,
And it really, really works. I'd say that for those listeners who have not tried clean romance or Christian romance, but would like to give it a shot, go for it, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Your mind kind of fills it all in. Anyway, you certainly get the romance part of it, and yeah, it just works on many levels. So and
and
and people might shy
and
away. Yeah.
pat on the back for you because you do a great job with the characters. And just before you get to what you were saying is um, what makes for me a great book is that I can differentiate between the characters. So, as I was saying earlier, if it was me, I'm reading a book, all the characters are going to sound the same. You won't know Jane from John. It's just, I'm
Right.
sorry, they're all going to sound the same. And so, you have the two characters and you have the stepfather. And I'm just wondering if, do you this is a weird question, but when you're doing accents or when you are making the characters have different voices, do you have different facial expressions? Are there like things that you do with your face or your mouth or that, things that help you, kind of change or shape that voice?
Yes, yeah, and good question, great question, and I probably don't even realize it all the time. I don't have a mirror up here to
You
see
should get
myself.
one. I should send you a mirror.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you do. You concoct your whole body. You gesticulate differently. You put yourself into, when I'm doing George Armstrong, who's the patriarch, the older gentleman, um, I have to kind of get myself a little bit hunched over, even though I think in the book he's probably only in his 60s. But hey, this is 1875, right?
Right.
So, people aged differently back then. But yeah, you have to kind of get yourself physically into that state, and that's what I mean by acting too. It's more than just putting the voice out there. And the only thing I was going to say was, for those of you who might shy away from a Christian romance of any kind, I found that although the Bible's mentioned in it and there's church in it, it doesn't hit you over the head, and it's just good people doing good things with a few bad people doing bad things. But I guess the Christian part of it comes out in that there's Christian values at play. But again, it's good people. It's good overall. It's a romance book that you could give to your teenage daughter and feel fine about. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
And I think that you made a good. Here's my thing: is you know, you can bring forth a great story and not be explicit, and that is not to diminish, romance or erotica or anything. Because I read and listen to them all. I have no. I listen to everything. Um, and I read Christian romance. I do it all. But this would be my first Christian historical romance audiobook. So
Yeah.
you so yay to you and Barbara because this will be my first and I'm so looking forward to it. It sounds like it's a great story, and that's the thing. It's the story and how you tell the story, and that's what makes a good book and a good audiobook is can that performer act and bring that story to life. And I think you did. And so now we will wait um, to hear it and share it with the audience and the listeners and get their feedback on it and have them connect and and become Insta fans of
Yeah.
Tom. That's our
Thank you.
goal.
It's awesome.
All right, so we are winding down here. We want to make sure that these episodes are kind of as short as possible. So now that you've got your feet wet with the, audiobooks, are there any other type of books that you would be interested in possibly narrating in the near future?
I I'm just wide open. I've been thinking about that a lot, even though I've got about 4 more months of getting the series done before I can actually dive into another book. I'm almost thinking about doing nonfiction next, just to kind of give myself a little bit of a break from doing a lot of characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm open to anything. I've been approached by 3 other authors just in the past month that wanted me to do their books because they found me on ACX. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that it's just a matter of time before I can get to those, and I've had to put them on hold. And so I've got 2 people that are like, okay, we'll kind of hang out and we'll see what happens in September, October timeframe. If I was an author and I wanted to get it done, I don't know that I'd wait for me, but we'll see what happens. But I'm open for anything. I'd love to do I'd also really like to do a psychological thriller, something in the Dean Koontz type of a.
I love Dean.
You know, yeah. I think that would be a blast. I've read and listened to many of his books, and he's got some fantastic narrators that I'm sure he's already done. But there's other books like that I'd like to do. So,
Oh, definitely. And
when time,
now I want to go into my little my I call it my black book of authors and see who's writing what and put a little bug in their ear that that's
there
what
you,
you're looking for.
yeah, there you go. I like it.
And now,
Great.
last thing, do you have a favorite accent that you enjoy doing?
I don't know if it's a favorite accent. I like George Armstrong from this series, the patriarch, the father of Jonas, and he's throughout the at least the first couple books that I've read. I'm on reading the third book now. He's good. I don't know. There's a lot. I've had a dabble in British accent, but it takes time, and there's a lot of different British accents. You can travel, around in America, you need to go hundreds of miles before you start hearing different dialects and different
Mm-hmm.
ways people talk. In Britain, you go 15 minutes outside of London and people talking different, So I certainly don't have that type of distinguished of accent ability yet, but I like doing them, and it's fun, and that's what I really enjoy is just diving into the characters, making them sound as different as I can. So.
And what's your research on that? I know that you said that you were working with a coach. Are there some other things that you do to assist you with an accent or a particular dialect so that you can kind of get into that character's tone?
YouTube is your friend when it comes. There's a lot of good videos out there on people doing different dialects and different accents, and you can watch a few of them. You can narrow it down to within 50 miles of the city that somebody's living in. One of the things is that I'm kind of fortunate in that this book series, at least so far, I'm not sure where books 4 and 5 are going to take me, or 6, but they're all in Kansas. Kansas is pretty much neutral American. There's really not there's no twang to it necessarily. And so that's pretty cool. So I can actually have that as my base, and the narrator sounds just like me, just like you hear right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the main characters of both the first couple books sound very close to that. So, but YouTube's great for that. And then of course you can get a dialect coach if you'd like. They're not cheap, but if you really wanted to nail something, that would be the way to go.
Okay. Well, good thing for me, I have YouTube, and even better, I'm not trying to do any accents because, yeah, I've got 3 of my own all wrapped up in whatever, Southern Indiana, North Carolina voice I have. So, yep, that's it for me, accent wise.
You didn't even know it.
Well, I hear it sometimes, and sometimes people say you have an accent, and no, I really don't. But thanks for pointing that out. All right, Tom. So tell everyone how they can find you on social media so that they can hunt you down and fall in love with your voice.
Oh, sure. Well, I am. You can find me at tomvoiceover.com. You can also find me at facebook.com/TomVoiceover. And I think between those two sites, it's fine. I'm on Twitter as well. There's links for that. But between those two, yeah. And I've got commercial demos and narration demos on TomVoiceover.com, so you can check that out.
All right, and Tom is on Twitter, and we are working to build up his Twitter following. So make sure that you go and find Tom on
With
Twitter.
you there a couple of days ago that said, "Are you on Twitter?" And I'm like, "No, should I be?" Like,
It's
I've
so
done
funny.
Twitter forever. I need to get it. It hasn't sunk in yet, but yeah, I'm there.
Yes, you are there, and I'm there, and everybody should go and find us on Twitter. I've just started using Twitter again, and it's really good just for short things, and especially, Tom, if you want to send out a clip, just put the clip in there. Hey, everybody, check that out. So we're going to be doing that for Tom this entire week. So be sure that you are following me on Twitter at _audio_flow. You're also following me on Facebook at the Audio Flow, and you will have access to everything, all things Tom, for the entire week of June 5th. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to ask that Tom would close us out and that he would do the closing that I sent him over, and then next week, beginning June 12th, we will hear from Megan Kelly. So it's all on you, Tom.
Thanks, Jock. It's been a pleasure. I'm Tom Jordan, voice actor, and you've been listening to The Featured Voice with Jock, an AudioFlow podcast summer series.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.